There's no reason why you should deprive yourself of this device at this price point. Yes, for under $20 freaking dollars, under 20 bucks, you can have this portable handheld that plays over 7 systems and like 5,000 games, something crazy like that. Metal Slug, the Pokemons, Marios, Sonic, you name it. It's got all the best games preloaded, everything you need with a 3-inch screen, all the controls. You can hook it up to a TV. Yes, you can literally have it playing on your mobile device here, your little emulation device, plug in the AV cables, and then you're running on the big screen. I'm also demonstrating here that you could save your state, save where you're at, go back into the game, play a little bit, hit select and start on your controller, and load the state you were just playing before. So it does have that functionality as well. So while this is not the most performance-heavy machine on the market, for the price, I'm liking this thing. It's got some cool stuff. Look at this. Mine also came with an extra controller, so you can use the device itself as player 1 while you have the AV cable plugged in. Or if you're playing one player, you can leave the device next to the TV and go on your couch and play with the remote control. Or what I'm showing you here is I'm using the controller as player 2 and the device as player 1. So all this for under $20. You have a portable retro gaming device, 2-player capabilities, save state, preloaded, ready to go. There's a reason why this thing has sold over 40,000 units that I could tell just on AliExpress. There's a ton more sold on Amazon and all over the place. So let's go ahead and unbox this thing and check it out. All right, so it comes with this little green box. I ordered the version that comes with the device and then one additional controller. If you look, I'll put a link to all of them. There's one where it comes with 2 controllers, one where it comes with no controller, and then one where it comes with 1. You do get an AV cable here. It's just like an AV cable. It's not HDMI, so it's 1 yellow cable and 1 red audio cable. Here's the device itself. Basically looks like an oversized Super Nintendo controller with a 3-inch screen, although it does have that little analog stick. The bumpers are very crispy, just clicky clackety. They're not squishy at all, and they have no throw to them at all. The analog stick is a very short throw, and it does not click in, so there's not an L3 button either. It's just literally analog stick. But you can take advantage of that analog stick on the MAME games like Marvel vs. Capcom, fighting game, Mortal Kombat, things like that. On the bottom here, you have an on-off switch. You have a Type-C charging cable. You have a micro SD slot where you can eject that, and it does come with this little dongle that you can plug into your computer and add controls. You have the AV cable slot, and then you have the volume, which is a dial. A, B, X, Y buttons are pretty standard. D-pad's pretty standard. Nothing great, not bad. And then the select and start button on the front is squishy like the original Super Nintendo controller. Only one speaker on that side here on your left side. The right side is just aesthetic. It's just dots on there. It does have a removable battery, which I actually like. If the battery ever goes out, you can go ahead and replace it. And here you go with the charge times and everything else. So it's about a 4-hour charge time. You get about 5 to 6 hours depending on what kind of games you're playing, which is not great. But again, for under 20 bucks, I mean, technically you could carry an extra battery with you and just swap out the batteries. And then it's 1500 milliamp battery in there. It is a stereo speaker, 1 gigabyte of RAM, and it's an SL4350 with 1 gigabyte of RAM. Nothing crazy. And then there's the systems as well at the top. So it's going to come with NES, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, or Mega Drive, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advanced, and MAME, which is an arcade system. And it runs well. I mean, all those systems run okay, except Super Nintendo I had a little bit issues with, but I'll talk about that at the end. But it's all running good. We do have this second controller here. It says SF on it. The select and start button have it moved to the middle. But as far as the D-pad, the A, B, X, Y, very similar. It does have those little handles on the bottom, more like the 8-bit Do controller there. So it is a little bit more ergonomic, for your hand, so for longer gaming periods. And then it has a player 1, player 2 select on it. And then remember, you can use this as a player 2 or a player 1. Player 2 while the other person has the device, or you can buy the version with the 2 on it. See, I would do it like that, and then you save some money. Is just have the AV cable with the first player. Just don't tug on it while you're playing, and then use the other one. But it's up to you. You have a couple different configuration options here. So what games are included on this thing? Let's get started in arcade, also known as MAME, but there's some Neo Geo games in here and some Final Burn Neo games in here as well. But you're going to have your Metal Slugs, you got Dungeons and Dragons in here, you got some X-Men games, you have Marvel versus Marvel superheroes, but also Marvel versus Capcom. You have Neo Drift, some cool racing games in there. You're going to have puzzle games. So it's a pretty good mix. You can see in the upper right corner is 204 games total for MAME, which is actually kind of small. But, for $20, I mean, come on. But definitely they could add more here. I think that would be great because it can handle it, and there's a lot more MAME games out there. But it gets you started. And remember, you can pull out that micro SD card and add more games, okay? But already, I'm just blown away already, right? That this thing has a screen and a battery and controls. Like, it's literally everything you need to game for $20. I've heard of things that you need to plug into computers or things you need to plug into a TV and there's no screen, but to throw that in on top of it is amazing. So what we're looking at now is we're looking at, they call it Family Computer, but if you're in the US or somewhere else, you might know it as the NES, the original Nintendo. And as you see here, 868 games on the upper right corner. So it's going to have every single game for NES. It's going to have 95% of them. Chip and Dale, Rescue Rangers. It's going to have your Super Mario, your Zelda, your Link, you name it. It's going to have it. Maybe some little hack games as well. Racing games. It's going to all be in here. So I'm just doing a quick left to right here. When you go left to right on your controller, that's how you skip an entire page. And then up and down just goes between that. But if there's 1,000 games on this page, like this one is almost 1,000, it is kind of, I would say there's something I'm not loving about it is that it just takes forever to find a particular game if it's in the middle of the alphabet. If it's in the back of the alphabet, you can actually press back and then go backwards. So you start at 868. But as you see here, it does have the Zeldas, both Link and Zelda, but it's under T for The Legend of Zelda, not Z for Zelda. That's something you're going to notice about this whole system. But talking about Super Famicom, I had some issues with Kirby Star and Final Fantasy V. Both kind of jittered on me. I got a little lag. Same thing with Aladdin. But then I played Super Mario All-Star. I played Ghosts and Ghouls. I played a couple other Aero Fighters, and it ran just fine. So the Super Nintendo, though, was hit or miss to me. It has all the Super Nintendo games. If you looked at that, just reverse your screen, your video a little bit, there's a ton of SNES games, Super Nintendo there. And then here you got Mega Drive, also known as Genesis, and it has all your games, all the Sonics, the comic game, you name it, everything from the 7-Up game. It's on there, and it runs really good. The Sega Genesis runs great. Game Boy and Game Boy Color, I imagine a lot of people are going to want to play Pokemon or Mario, and it has all those games. Something and even has Battletoads, and Contra, all that fun stuff. But what I was mentioning earlier is something that does kind of suck about these systems is that the titles or the names are different. For example, you might know it as Mega Man, they call it Rockman. We call it Pokemon, they might call it Pocket Monsters. So there's different names, and then there's misspellings on top of that, and just things that are lost in translation. So just keep that in mind. That's why you're getting it so cheap, right? It's definitely not a polished product in that regard. But here you go. You have Pokemon, right? You have Blah or Bleu, which is the French version, I assume. Then you have Blue, which is the American version of that. And then you can see here you have Edition, which I think is that French as well, or you got another. Some Spanish as well in here, Versione? No, just Version. And depending on, which version you want. So you have to click in and find which one you want. Same thing you're going to find here with Game Boy Color with the Pokemon selection. You're going to find the same thing happening. But here, as you can see, I went left instead of right. So you can see I can go back through the collection a lot faster. So we started Yu-Gi-Oh! We got X-Men. We even got Woody Woodpecker. But it has all of them. Now here you go, Pokemon Emerald version. You see that the first game? So I don't know if you're not a Pokemon fan, this game is worth a ton of money. Loose, I want to say this is a $150 game or $100 game or maybe even more. If you have that game in the box, it's $400, $500. So it's a really expensive game. So if you were just to buy the system to play that game, I don't even think you can get a fake version. I think a fake version of that game was $10. So a fake cart on that game. So for an extra $10, you get an entire system. Like, that's pretty incredible. But they do play the Game Boy Advance games, and it's a nice because it's a portable system playing on a portable emulation device, so it's kind of a nice pairing there. But Hello Kitty, Harry Potter, it's all there. You can add to favorites, but back to the navigation thing. You can add to favorites. So if you want to, it's going to be X on your controller. And then once you had favorites, there's a favorite section here in the user settings. And so you can favorite the games you like to play, and that way you don't have to like run around the system all the time. Especially if you're playing a particular game. Remember, you can save your state. You can get to the system. I guess you could get to it pretty quickly that way. So, I mean, you can see there, I just favorited that game, Legend of Zelda, and then it's now on your favorites if you go to favorites. And there it is, 1986. What a year. What a year. I know there's more powerful retro gaming devices out there that are just way newer, have so many more features, can do so much more, longer battery life, bigger screens, better screens, like this R36S. Now, the R36S, if you get on sale, about $40. I think it sells for around 50, sometimes upwards of 60. And so you're going to be spending almost 3 times more on something like that. And then you got to think about, well, if I spend an extra $20, I can get an AmberNIC, one of the AmberNIC devices. And then if you say, I can spend 20 more, I can get a Cube, right? And then you get into this big thing of like price to performance, and it gets kind of out of hand. The reason why I like this device, and I actually recommend it, it's so darn cheap. You don't have to think twice. Just get it. It's cool. Even if you end up throwing it out, or like not throwing it out, but you throw it under your couch, it gets lost in the couch cushion. And, no harm, no foul, It makes a great gift. Any kid's going to love it, especially if you want to get a kid into retro gaming. It has all those NES and Super Nintendo. I mean, those are some golden ages of gaming, and to revisit those games is amazing. The fact that you can save your state, and you can even play 2-player games as well, it's just ridiculous. But for sure, people watching my channel that have way better, more powerful devices, I get it. And I agree, those are far superior. And this is very rudimentary, very low, bottom of the barrel stuff. But typically when you buy something this cheap, it's just total trash, right? I don't think this is trash. I think it's fine. Like, it's just fine, right? And fine can be good. Right? Sometimes you just want to be satiated, right? You don't need it to do all the bells and... Yeah, sometimes you do think it's yucky, huh? But this is not too bad, right? So, you can get through a couple games with this. It's not going to last forever. It is pocketable, by the way, so it's easily ported around. But, as you see here in the gameplay, it plays these games just fine. And you can see on the screen here, I actually played around with 4:3 versus widescreen 16:9. You could do both, just change the settings on your TV. And then, the controls, I mean, they're not great. I'll agree with you all. But do they get the job done? Yeah, they do. And so, like I said, I'm a really budget price type of person, right? Like, I'm okay saving money and getting maybe something that's not nearly as good as the other stuff. And this is what you're getting here. So for presents, for something to throw around, just for shits and giggles, kind of cool little device. But like I said, I agree with you all. There is way better devices out there. But that's what I think. Let me know what you all think. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.